Woven, a collaborative world building actual play podcast, building a world one game at a time. Today, we'll be continuing our world building series as part of Cosmic Century Nights, written by James D'Amato and Andrew Mergiewski. The coming episodes focus on building out the antagonists for our system. And I'm looking at the faces of the people in the chat, and they are like chomping to do this. So let's get to it. Theme music.
Please just play you saying theme music instead of doing the theme music for this episode.
I'm gonna read from the tome, page 58. I am going to read from the book of Cosmic Century Nights, from the book of James.
Gotta be my favorite book written by a James.
Book of James.
Antagonists and threats. The knights and their blades are only part of the equation. In Cosmic Century Nights, players also build the forces of chaos and darkness that threaten their world, so their adventures can be filled with interesting opposition. Creating these is a collaborative responsibility and should probably begin right after character creation, which it is. That's how that's working. This is also really why I wanted to play this game, because it's perfect for how we do things here. These forces are identified by two names: antagonists and threats. Antagonists are oppositional forces tied to a single theme. Even if they are not thinking, they have an agenda that spells a shade of doom for your world. Antagonists are designed to carry as much creative weight as the heroic knights, so their confrontations can be so much more compelling. Threats are individual forces in the world that pose a danger to knights and the people whom they protect. Things like monsters, traps, and warriors willing to oppose a knight. Many threats are related to antagonists, originating in the Blight Labyrinth or from the Star Conquerors. However, they can appear independently of the greater parts. Every threat has a collection of stats that define how knights can engage with them mechanically. Threats are divided into categories based on themes. Each category of threat has its own list of antagonists and world building traits to define. And it gets so detailed. It's incredible. Some will even connect to other elements you have created, even to each other. By the end of this process, your group's version of an antagonist will feel distinct and original to your world. Even if you play Cosmic Century Nights multiple times, the same category of threat can end up completely different. So, the core book has four different types of antagonists, only three of which we actually work out the details of. The three main categories are the Star Conquerors, strange beings from the stars who seek to colonize the planet. They have strange biologies and weapons with untold numbers. Without opposition, they will rule the planet. The Fell Knights, a circle of knights holding century blades sworn to an evil cause. They possess the same amazing power as PCs, but have no intention of putting that power to noble use. And the Blight Labyrinth, an extra-dimensional incursion of passages that lures in beasts and men to digest and warp into twisted monsters. Unchecked, it will grow to overwhelm cities and civilizations.
And I did accidentally already introduce that.
I was happy that you did. I was ready to pounce on that. Like, I had already been cooking that in my head that we were going to do something with the tunnels and the Blight Labyrinth. We'll get to that.
Lore primer on that incoming for when we get to that section.
Yeah, wow, we jumped the gun. The way it works is we flesh out the aesthetics and aspects of each one of these categories of antagonist. It's very similar to how we build knights. We have prompts, and we sort of set things up based on what we think is the best way to do it. And then there are levels inside of each antagonist type, like drones, beasts, soldiers, captains, lords, and terrors that we can also flesh out and like get details on. It's pretty detailed, and we can get like really down into it, and that can be a lot of fun. I wanted to start, so we'll go to page 61 on the doc, and we will look at the Star Conquerors, and we are going to hit our very first snag, which I sort of mentioned in the green room, and that is we don't have a conquering. We have a conquering empire. What this empire is not is of the heavens. It is definitely very terrestrial. And I wanted to talk first about how we want to negotiate that.
I think
I have a potential pitch.
personally, I think that the themes should carry over quite well. I feel like, I mean, I haven't read the whole doc, but I feel like them being extraterrestrial, I feel like that shouldn't be the most important part about the Star Conquerors as much as the like empire conquering part. So I feel like just taking the Star Conquerors and making them the terrestrial conquerors shouldn't break anything.
Just
I have a
anytime it says
potential.
celestial replaced with undead or something, it's like it should. I assume it will work out probably, but I haven't read it yet, so I could be
Agree.
horribly wrong.
What if vampirism, that kind of undeath, the Undying Empire, came from the City of the Gods?
I
We don't know where it came from, so we could kind of use that to like hand wave a little bit of like some of this, or that maybe there's something else that came from a place like the City of the Gods.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely my thinking with all of that, was either that you just go, yeah, I mean, the part of this that's the important part is the conquering part. Or
Yeah.
or exactly what Bree is saying, of just being like, yeah, like if you guys don't know where all of that came from, if they just showed up one day, who's to say that they weren't? Like, who's to say that they weren't from space? They're space vampires. No one knows that, but they are.
Spampires.
The vampirates?
Only the
think
vampires
that's already been a
that
thing.
are nice to Letheris.
No. Original idea. No one's ever had that before.
Can I have a very me quibble with
we're going
Not
straight
liking
in
that.
on it.
Could we possibly stop you?
I haven't yet.
Damn.
So like by positioning the proxy for like our proxy for British imperialism, American imperialism, and stuff like that. It's a thing that is external and imposed upon an otherwise hey, everything here would be fine without it. Like the thing with fascism is that it comes from inside us. Like that's a thing that this communities create. There's a number of things that contribute to that, but it's not exactly coming from outside. That's
I agree with you, but I also think that like just because the original source of it was potentially was like from the stars doesn't mean that it wasn't bred and festered very, very terrestrially. Like it didn't have to be a
true.
huge invading force. It could have been a dude or like a couple of guys who came on in and they were like, cool, we can exploit this, because if people aren't being vigilant about it, then this is exactly a thing that we can do and we can wipe our hands of it and it'll carry on doing what it does.
Some of the undeath and the power through blood coming from someplace else, but what people have used to, like, using this thing to spread control and fascism, like, the source of the vampirism did not bring with it fascism, but it was used for fascism.
Yeah, to me, the important, like, both of these things are like fine reads and can work, assuming that there's nothing that needs to be like completely overwritten within the text. But like to the point that Rob started off with, the important thing is that they are a colonizing power that is like the central point of the Star Conquerors, the Undying Empire, is their expansionist territory. Is if they are not checked, they will rule everything. We can decide what comes from the weave and what comes from outside it later. It's probably a mixture of both. I know at one point we were talking about, like, what is the Emperor's grand plan? And it's like, what if the Emperor's big plan was to build a rocket ship and go conquer the City of the Gods? Which is still a funny plan that might still be happening. So, to me, that's to support Ross' premise of the first and foremost most important thing is the Star Conquerors. The most important thing about them is that they are conquerors first and from the stars second, and maybe fill in details as we go.
There will be details to fill in related to some of the motivations of like the some of the extraterrestrial motivations, but if we sort of go with the idea that some element of the Undying Empire is extraterrestrial and came from the stars, exactly what that looks like, that might get fleshed out through play, but I think we can roll with that, and I think it'll work.
I think as well, a thing to think about it this way for me is like the Undying Empire if left to its own devices, would become Star Conquerors, right? Like the
Oh,
Undying
yeah.
Empire, if left to its own devices, would take over the entire weave and then be like, hey, the gods presumably came from that thing in the sky. That's the next step, right?
We
So
are
it's
going
almost
to
more
attack
like,
and dethrone God.
so it's almost like they're just like they are Star Conquerors. They just are. They're not there yet. Like
Yeah, what
they're
if this is the
proto.
first? What if this is the first planet the Star Conquerors conquer?
Yeah, you got to conquer a star first.
This is day one.
Mhm.
Listen, season 4 of Game Woven, we go back to Cosmic Century Nights after an entire 2 years of setting up a sci-fi setting, and the Star Conquerors are just still the Undying Empire because we failed in season 2. Sure.
Why would you
Spoilers.
speak failure over us? Why would you do this?
Why do you do this to us, Zad? That's so mean.
I was
planning
just
for the
little the
future.
whole time.
I'm
Well,
just a little guy and it's my birthday.
I didn't even do anything wrong.
Okay.
if they're still around, that doesn't necessarily mean that they conquered our world. It could just be we didn't eradicate them all. Some of them got out and they decided to try again somewhere else.
There could be multiple undying emperors throughout the galaxy. Like there, imagine like yeah, it'd be emperors undying. There could be multiple emperors undying throughout the galaxy, and they're kind of like what's that machine that like replicates itself? Like it goes to a planet, uses the
Great
resources
goods.
of that. Yeah, uses the resources of that planet to then build a copy of itself, which then goes to the next planet and uses the resources of that planet.
Now I'm thinking of Hordak from She-Ra.
Ah, now I gotta look it up.
So my personal thing is, despite the fact the setting is on a moon is my fault, I'm I'm not particularly interested in more sci-fi beyond that, you know? And also in my
Mhm.
head, it's not sci-fi at all. It's just use, I don't know, you can magic yourself to the moon.
Right. Well, they're like
uh,
I looked it up. They're maybe it's kind of like they're magical von Neumann machines.
mhm.
That's the word for them is a von Neumann. Let's get into it. Let's go into the actual prompt. So we start with the aesthetics. Now, I understand that a lot of for this one, we're going to be cribbing directly from a significant amount of established lore. And so it's
Uh-huh.
basically just finding the thing that fits. For the other ones, we'll be able to generate a lot more new stuff whole cloth. What we have for aesthetics is we choose 2 from the appearance list, 1 or 2 from the silhouette, and then 1 from the danger. So under appearance, choose 2: luminescence, metallic, neon, umbral, sparkling, lensed, blurred, shifting, slimy, ultraviolet.
I
The one that
point blank
immediately
refuse
stuck out to me
sparkling.
was Umbral.
Because, you
What if
know,
they were
was it?
Umbral and Sparkling?
Umbral
Just a shiny void.
No shiny boys. We're not Twilight in here.
No, not shiny boy, shiny void.
Oh,
It's
shiny
different.
void. Yeah, different. Very different. Yeah.
So sparkling is
did-
funny in contrast to luminescence because like I mean I guess digging back into the way say like High House Imperialis styles itself, Bahamut's big shiny gold cloak that's got a tear in it. Thank you Bree. Grumble grumble grumble. As opposed to luminescence where it's just like
That wasn't me.
a sort of more
That
even
was
light.
me.
That was
Was that?
Emily.
Oh,
That was for
Emily.
Nadia.
Thank you, Emily. That cloak is
I
very,
didn't-
sorry. That cape is very, very expensive. But
Petty
I like
revenge
Umbral
is
and
the
Sparkly.
best kind.
What
I
about
was gonna pitch.
shifting? Though?
Shifting.
We have
Shifting?
this.
Umbral and shifting.
Mhm.
We have described vampires as being able to shift in their appearance before revealing more of their
Yeah.
monstrous nature.
A lot of them
up.
have
Human
an extra
nature.
like
Hold up.
like
We are currently building potentially shifting shadows
uh-huh.
that give anybody sanctuary flashbacks, or just me?
Yes.
It's been a minute. I don't remember.
Those were inscrutable.
The inscrutable.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna pitch metallic just because I mean just from a
They got a
what
lot of
their
weaponry and
forces
shit, yeah.
wear. Like I'm imagining kind of like like the classic Lord of the Rings, like legions of Saruman, like
Oh,
forces of
yeah.
armored people just kind of marching forward.
I mean, I
Metallic,
guess
not
my
necessarily in the. Good.
I don't know, I was gonna ask I guess my first question is does this have any mechanical bearing on anything, or is it just this fluff right
This
now?
is just
I'm
vibes.
okay. Then
It's just aesthetics.
like okay.
I
base
base my entire existence on vibes.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
Yeah, in that case,
I like
umbrella and
metallic.
metallic also fit.
I think I get where you're going with sort of your line of questioning though, Lex, and that is since we've sort of covered this ground in the previous episodes, why are we retreading it? I think this
Little
is
bit.
a useful exercise to summarize some high points about this specific
Gotcha.
antagonist, in case people are on ramping onto the show. And so when we talk about Umbral, I think that we've definitely represented the magic specifically
Mhm.
of like Imperials as extremely void-like, very dark.
Yeah.
We've talked about well, they were the first ones to get steel, and every time we've talked about like their armor and the construction of like their weapons and like everything, it's always like really shimmering, very baroque, very gilded.
Yeah, they have a lot of fancy
Mhm.
things to be like, haha, we can afford it, haha. And then
Yeah.
like
We control all the resources.
this is the thing I don't think we've ever like said explicitly, but the thing I think about a lot, we really never describe them in like big chunky armor or anything. In my head, that's because they're like, well, we don't need it. We'll kill you anyway. You know, like it's like a sort of intimidation tactic. Like, we don't need heavy weaponry to beat your ass. We'll do it no matter what.
Well, and also you don't need to heavily arm your soldiers because if they die, they're just as useful,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah.
That's why I think like we don't mention them in heavy armor a lot. But that's the thing I've never like said out loud. I don't think.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. Let's look at the
Yeah.
silhouette. Choose one or two. This is fun. I do like it. Crustacean, insectoid, cephalopoda, mammalian, avian, reptilian, fungal, mechanical, ethereal, amorphous, flawless, sterile.
My immediate thought is sterile.
My first thought was well, mammalian is literally people. Mammalian flawless.
Yeah,
I was also
flawless.
thinking flawless.
So was I.
Yeah, just
and
like the weirdly perfect, people looking thing.
Yeah, until they go gross Nosferatu mode or whatever.
yeah, because like a lot of like especially the vampires specifically are glamoring themselves, and so they would glamour themselves to be as perfect as possible, and so you get sort of an uncanny symmetry about their forms and all of that.
Yeah, I can see that. So I would push for flawless and sterile though to represent the uncanny because like an actual flawless, like if it was just flawless, I would feel like they would be. It wouldn't. I feel like to me like even the vampires who are trying to look like a stupid sexy vampire is like it's never quite good enough to like look like a normal just hot person. Like there's always like a little bit of a give or tell.
Yeah, they're always like a little bit too pale or whatever. Like they're always a little bit off.
So when I was talking to Faye about some circum stuff like a year
Yo, what's up?
and a half ago,
Y'all locked in? What's up?
like I said like he's got like an extra set of abs and
Oh yeah,
maybe
it is like weirdly
a third
uncanny.
knuckle. Right. Just and that's like
It's
just how his
giving
body
people
is.
as generated by AI.
Exactly.
You know,
And
that's a
there's,
good way to
like,
think
If
about it.
we
Yeah,
have
there's
to-
always like
That's
It's just like
the kind of
Uncanny Valley. It's
sterility.
like
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
even if you don't recognize what's off, you know something's off.
Yeah, but it's like
Yeah.
you have to like look at it for like a couple of seconds extra where you're like, wait a second, like why does your hand look like that? Like that's not it shouldn't look like that. Or your neck is really long, actually. I thought it was elegant at first, but now it's like too much. Yeah.
So it for this one it says to choose one or two. If we only have to do one between flawless and sterile, I would go with sterile.
If we go
Like,
mammal and sterile, like of the like mammal's the literal one of they are people shaped, which we can potentially just skip because people shaped. But yeah, I think sterile, flawless, mammal are like the three to look at.
I do
Right.
like the detail that every one of them has sort of by nature of their glamour and sort of like how they've assembled themselves in their immortality has adopted some at least one aspect that is vaguely beyond what you would expect to see from just like a normal guy. extra
Like a
knuckles,
Snapchat
extra
filter.
abs, like yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like there's two like aspects of that where first of all, this is no longer a person. This is like creature that is like disconnected from like personhood, trying to recreate it. And then also these are like generally very like vain and prideful creatures who don't want to look like they want to stand out and look cooler and better, right? They don't want to
Yeah.
look like a normal person. They would only do that for like a brief amount of time if they needed to. They want to look special and intimidating and whatever.
I had
I
like
would just briefly pointing out that mammalian does not necessarily equal humanoid.
Yes, yeah, I know. That I was being literal. Like it
I
probably
had,
meant furry. Like I'm like that's probably the point of it. It probably meant
Almost
funny,
certainly.
funny cat boys, whatever.
Oh, funny cat boys. We're going to pivot. They're funny cat boys now. There's I had established once when in a previous campaign that I ran a fact about dragons that I think maybe would apply a little bit over to these really high level vampires, and that is dragons love it when they are in their human form and the person they're talking to knows that they're a dragon, and the dragon knows the person that they're a dragon, but they both dance around the subject. They really really like that intimidation game, and I'm wondering if the vampires also like sort of like the fact that like everyone knows what's going on, everyone knows that they're sort of wrong, but no one would dare say anything to them about it.
A lot of them are going for phase definition for ethereal. That's what they're trying to evoke, and they're like doing a C- job.
Yeah, they're not good at it.
That's tough.
On
me up, I guess.
danger, so then we choose one from danger. I have one that's like jumping out at me. I'm really hoping everyone else pounces on this
It's
one, on the
consuming,
same one as
right?
me. Oh, yeah. So the dangers are sharp, toxic, hulking, smothering, swarming, venomous, psychic, and consuming.
Well, consuming, yeah, that's their deal.
Like I was like
if-
obviously
if-
there's
Couple
like the
ways.
whole vampire thing, but I was even just thinking about like they are just like grab the land, like
Yeah.
exploit as many people and resources as possible.
In that same vein, though, I think that smothering could also work really well because
Yeah,
the point of it
absolutely.
isn't exclusively to consume; it is also to actively
Ooh.
eradicate what is there.
Yeah.
Damn,
Swarming
Van,
can
you
also
just
work.
told me.
Swarming can kind of cover both too. If you think of them as locusts, like kind of works.
Wow. The one that I thought was psychic. The one that I had in my head was psychic.
Psychic's a fair one.
I
Psychic
love
was the
this.
other one I was still thinking at.
Because
or
of the
thinking of.
thralling and the mind controlling and like the way their magic is presented and all of that. I was like, oh, that's the big danger is the mind control. You got to watch out for that.
I mean,
Yeah, I guess
you wanna
it's a
remember-
question of
So
are we choosing the aesthetic danger of the empire or the vampires? Since to me the
That's
danger
true.
aesthetic of the empire is that smothering, that like
Right.
we are going to take over your land, and we're not going to just take over land. We're going to make it like irredeemably ours now. Like
Yeah.
like we're going to erase your past and your future, so it's just the empire now. So even
your
if you
culture,
like
our culture.
That makes a lot of sense actually. That's and maybe there'll be a prompt when we get to like specific orders of vampire where we can sort of identify specific threats. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
where'd my brain
psychic
go?
works because they're basically controlling large amounts of people using blood magic, essentially.
That's the thing I want to ask actually. Now I remember. So most of the time, at least in my head, most of the time when they're controlling somebody, it wasn't usually mind control. That was usually they effectively kill them and make them like a zombie. Like I thought when they were thralled, they were undead now, not mind controlled. I thought.
Yeah, we'll say we haven't actually, I don't believe, established like the classic like hypnotic eyes vampire power. Mostly it's been like dead steel, which are weapons that basically make you partially like on the spectrum of undead, where basically in my mind what it is, they have like basically complete control of undead things that aren't special. And so if you like are cut by dead steel and become partially undead, that's the in they need.
Right. That's why psychic didn't even cross my mind. But if y'all think it's more psychic than just like straight necro liturgy. That's fair.
I see. I seem to recall, and tell me if this is headcanon or if we actually established this. But as you like, the longer you're undead and the longer you serve the Emperor as undead, the more of you starts to whittle away, and the more like the thrall takes over, and you become there is less of you person identity and more of just the Emperor and the Empire within
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. I know that
If that's a
was
thing we
Yeah, that-
specifically established, I don't remember it, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that feels like something that we've gestured at, but I don't think it works in the way that typical like psychic powers, like they can't just walk up and immediately mind control a random person. They
Yeah,
can-
I don't think we've had like a vampire do that. If one could do that, sure, we have magic of every kind in the setting.
I don't remember where. I think it might have been. I think what Ben you're referring to. If I'm not mistaken, there was like a work camp. I think in the city we did for
Primsol.
Primsol. I believe there was like that was a phenomena we described when we were building out Primsol.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if we said that was like in that one area or like across the whole city or whatever. But that is bringing it back.
No, there was a specified building where workers would be made to live if they were causing trouble, and the bottom floor is where they were converting thralls.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've got a pretty clear picture of them. Let's get into the aspects. So the aspects are ordered from 5 to 1, and basically the higher number is they're kind of extremes of the options. So the aspects are connection to blades, interest in planet, coherence, and intent. Um, and each one of the prompts is numbered 1 through 5. And so if we start with the connection to the blades, of 5 is the century blades were forged as weapons specifically to oppose the Star Conquerors. They were sent to this planet in part so denizens could defend themselves. And 1 is the Star Conquerors have never encountered the century blades before. Even with their sprawling empire, the origin of the cosmic blade is a mystery. So somewhere along that line, where do we think they land?
We're going straight up with these are a collection of magic swords that are all connected, or is it just we happen to be a bunch of dudes who happen to have swords that happen to be magic?
The swords are connected.
Okay.
Yes, they are connected. They do come from an original source.
Okay. So they're all from the same place somehow. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that like these swords didn't exist here prior to like the blade fall, right? Like they were they all came in at the same time, and that was like recently-ish.
100 years ago, roughly.
Yeah, a little over 100 years ago. The way I've been thinking about it is some of these swords may be brand new to the world. Some of these swords may have been extant swords that people were wielding at the time, but at the moment of the blade fall, they then became century blades.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like
because
some of them just went from like nothing to super cool, and then some of them went from already magical swords to very magical swords.
Yeah,
Is that
I'm
what you're thinking?
like
yeah, because
Go ahead.
the way I remember it is that the sword that was part of the Bladefall, the blade at Dalatheria, has potentially been here longer than the Undying Empire. So, like,
right.
the swords that we are carrying existed. It's just something that happened with the Bladefall caused something in them to change and potentially wake up. That's what's been in my mind. Some of them might have appeared where they were found, or unclear, but
I will confirm that yes, the Dawnbreaker, which is the sword in Dalatheria, does predate the Undying Empire.
So I mean, like with what's going on with like sort of all of that, I would think that they've never seen these before. They've maybe seen other powerful swords before, but like that there is some sort of awakening that has happened that they're like, oh, we don't know what the fuck any of this is.
Yeah.
And that would make that a 1. Does anyone see any of the other prompts? So there's different responses for 4, 3, 2, etc. Does anyone see any others that are jumping out at them?
Yeah, my pitch would be a 2, if only because I like that it opens up the opportunity to have a vampire with a sentry blade.
Would you
Like
read
if
2 for us?
Yeah. So we'll do one. I'll read. So number one, priority one, the lowest possible is the Star Conquerors have never encountered the Century Blades before. Even with their sprawling empire, the origin of the Cosmic Blade is a mystery. And two is though the Star Conquerors don't know much of the origin of the blades, they use them in a fashion. They scout and follow the Cosmic Blade through space because it is one of the best ways to locate a world worthy of conquest. So, because also the Empire we know has tried to find the Blade of Dalatheria before. So, in my mind, I think it's more interesting if, while they don't know what's up with them, they know they exist at the very least, and maybe there are a couple in Empire hands. Because I think that's
that could be the origin of Dead Steel. Maybe they found one like what's the word, reverse engineered or whatever.
Yeah, tried to like make their own.
Yeah.
Do the Brazens serve the Undying Empire?
Kind
of.
of.
So yes,
But like
they serve the Empire.
The medium answer is they don't want to, got colonized, and now they kind of do sometimes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as a general rule, Brazen, they're badass warriors, and they'll fight. Currently, they're like, hey, can we get rid of the vampires? I'm sure some of them are siding with the vampires because, they've been under vampiric rule for however long we established. I forgot.
Long time.
Somewhere within that
800?
1,000-year first episode.
I think I agree with Rob on two here, mostly because we actually already have in canon at least an example of at least one vampire possessing a Century Blade that is currently on loan to Zad's character.
Okay.
Well, then that feels fitting.
Fair.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next one. Interest in planet. This one, I think we kind of have to go with the conceit that there's something extraterrestrial about it, and so there's a slightly larger motivation. But I would be interested to see what we get out of the prompts. The prompts are: your world is actually forbidden ground to Star Conquerors. Only dissidents and fools from the Legion would dare travel here. 4 is your world is being kept secret from Legion command. It is either the work of a benevolent force outside the Empire or an ambitious and greedy general looking to take the world for themselves. 3, your world is considered unremarkable by the Legion. If you have resources valuable to them or present any kind of threat, they don't know that yet. 2, your planet would be considered extremely valuable prize for the Legion to the point that multiple factions within the Empire might vie to claim it. And 1, the world is of paramount importance to the Empire. It was marked for conquest before the Star Conquerors took their first world. If they are not here yet, they are coming.
I think 1's the closest.
Yeah. This is their first world.
This is their first world, yeah.
Yeah.
We could potentially eventually switch world with city because it's like as they're conquering, but still, that's
continent, whatever.
The Cosmic Century Dice, like where all this is starting, is going to be on the Overton Bridge.
Right.
And the Empire really would like that bridge, please.
Yeah,
So
I think this is. I think the Empire's got to win this one, or they're dead before they begin.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on to coherence. So coherence is like how like a normal human they are. 5, Star Conquerors have minds very similar to the denizens of the world. 4, Star Conquerors have motivations and communication similar to the denizens, but they are distinct in starkly alien ways. 3, there are only a few within the Star Conqueror legions who think ways remotely similar to the denizens. 2, Star Conquerors think in ways that are nearly comprehensible. And 1, the Star Conquerors are eldritch terrors far beyond mortal imagining.
So my answer is 5. Thinking back to what Zad was saying about fascism coming from within, they aren't inherent monsters. They're bred within a culture that emphasizes them becoming monsters rather than they are inherently monstrous.
I do agree with that. Part of me was leaning 3 and 4 because of with vampires being long lived, that does kind of make them does cause a difference. They have they lack key emotions and their motivations for conquest are strange or escalated. And what I like about 3 is most of the force is made of drones, beasts, or tools because a lot of the Imperial
That's
army
fair too.
Is cannon fodder. But I do any of those 3.
I do and maybe we don't actually land on a specific one, but I do agree that like especially the long-livedness, the living persisting for centuries, or in some cases for some of the older vampires, like almost 1,000 years. That's you are not
Yeah.
like I
Gonna
cannot
fuck you up.
imagine someone who's lived that long thinking like a mortal human who has 75 years
Mhm.
on this earth. Like that would definitely change you.
That's fair.
That
It's
sounds like
just
a
in my
4
head
to
that
me.
is yeah, it's just in my head the change is still like that's still a thing that would happen to anybody, you know? Like it's still a human reaction.
Right, yeah.
Like, yeah, they're weird
Mhm.
humans, but they're human at the end of the day still. You know,
I think
at least
I think
that's
I follow
my
what you're
thought.
saying, like I think I follow what you're saying is like
Mhm.
you're basically saying like even if they are extremely different, that's not an essential property of them. That
Right.
is because of that is because of experiences or their long-livedness, which is not
Right.
inherent to the individual. That is
Right. Nature
something that
versus
is,
nurture.
given to them because they Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're nurtured into becoming fascist monsters. They're not by nature fascist monsters.
What?
So actually, uh, I will confess doing a little reading ahead. So I think one of the big things is that we can't repeat numbers. So my thought
Oh.
is
Oh.
let's figure
I
out,
forgot.
let's look at form, because I feel like where we put coherence and form is like where that 4 and 5 could be.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the 4 and 5 for form. So 5 for form is the Star Conquerors look more or less humanoid, like the denizens of the world. It is only in very small details like skin and hair color, facial features, or fashion where one can identify the difference between them and folk indigenous to this world. Where 4 is the Star Conquerors have humanoid forms with prominent bestial horrific features. One could never mistake them for a denizen of this world. Their physical differences also make them more intimidating and formidable.
Mm.
Well,
So
When
to
they are
I think we know
me,
where our
unglimmered.
score is going.
that sounds to me like a
Yeah.
5 for form and a 4 for coherence. Feels more in line because again, like they are terrestrial looking, but again they have that uncanniness in my mind.
Okay.
Well, I
Pretty
remember when we described, I think it was when Zad described Circum dropping the glamour for the first time as a very horrifying appearance, which is why I would
Mhm.
kind of lean forward because they do look human, but the second they drop the glamour, it's like, nope, that's a vampire. Absolutely.
That makes sense to me.
Although even with
So
the glamour, it would be hard to mistake one for a human.
so we would
This is a
think
question
5
that does
for coherence and 4 for form?
sure.
Mhm.
Also, this is a question that has very little weight in anything. I was just curious. When the vampires change, is that like dropping like a magical illusion, or are they straight up shape shifting?
That's dropping a magical illusion. I guess like my intention with Circum was that he maintains a like a level glamour so that he looks
Okay.
more or less human, and then like what we see in the that is an illusion, and what we see in the fight in the burning theater is what he actually looks like.
Okay.
No.
In my head, the entire time, it was like a shape shifting, not illusion. But that makes okay. I was genuinely clearing up misconception.
I think in my mind they're capable of both, but maybe the
Okay.
shapeshifting is less about like looking like people.
Okay.
Shape shifting for function,
Because
and
it's
it's a
just
lot
more
of work.
work. Like it'd be a lot more work to like turn your Nosferatu ass into a normal person instead of just like illusion.
That leaves us
Mhm.
with a 3 for intent, if I'm not mistaken. And that I think works. The Star Conquerors desire
Hey,
resources, and all their actions are a means to that end. They will dominate, destroy, or eradicate based on the most efficient path to their desires. I think that works.
well, that's very
Sure.
tidy.
Yeah.
That's very tidy.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 also works because
Yeah.
it's the Star Conquerors wish to colonize this world, but 3 fits because with conquering cities and kingdoms, congratulations, you now have more fodder for your army.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um.
for posterity, just
They
make sure we're going 5 for coherence, 4 for form, right? Is
I
that
like
where we
that
landed?
one. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to the Game Woven podcast. Today's episode featured the entire cast, including me, P.P. Benjamin, Lex Olden as Paul Day, Emily, Faye, Rob, Zad, and Bree. For more of Game Woven, you can find us on Blue Sky at Game Woven. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/GameWoven. Thank you.